Hi everyone, Guy from Montreal, Guy Giard, author of The Courage to Love. It's my pleasure to share with you my book. Today we're going to go into chapter 2. It's called Crooked Teeth. In 1967, Canada celebrated its centennial year. For this occasion, Montreal opened its door with a World's Fair called Expo 67. School children were invited to visit, and as part of a class project, I had to do a presentation on my favorite exhibit. Because the grounds were humongous and the crowds noisy, when we visited the pavilions, we had to hold hands, which I hated. There were 90 pavilions, but we were only able to see a handful of them, including those from Japan, the Netherlands, and Haiti. But the one that got me the most excited had a funny name, USSR. Inside the round movie theater, a film showed the craters and deserts of the moon and Venus. I'm on the moon! Shiny metal balls with long antennas, replicas of the Soviet satellites Sputnik and Sputnik 2, seemed to float overhead. Sputnik 2, which carried a dog named Laika, had been launched into space exactly 2 years before I was born. But what really got my heart pumping was the orange spacesuit of Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space. I'm a cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin in my rocket ship, and I've blasted into orbit. I was so enthralled with the exhibit that I made a cardboard cutout of a TV with a rolling montage of drawings of him, his spaceship, and the stars for my class presentation. By this time, I'd already gotten into the habit of cutting through Outremont's magnificent Joyce Park as I walked home from school by myself. The park's impeccably landscaped grounds, majestic oak, maple, and pine trees, and wildly colorful flower beds were like something out of a fairy tale. Nature had always made me feel alive. It was my peaceful oasis away from the abuse I took from the bullies at school and my brothers. I'd spend hours playing alone in the sandbox under the bright sunshine, building sandcastles and using twigs to create complex forests of leaves, pine cones, acorns with their funny little brown hats. The soundtrack to my solitary play was rustling leaves and the twang of tennis ball bouncing on the courts behind the park's administrative building. As much as I loved the sandbox, my favorite was the swings next to it. They desperately needed oiling, but the creak, creak sound they made didn't bother me. I'd sit down on the chipped red painted wood plank, push off with my feet, and thrust my leg out as far as I could up toward the sky. Higher, higher, higher. When my buttocks finally lifted off the seat, I'd let go of the chain and blast off into space like my hero, Yuri Gagarin. I'm coming to rescue you, Laika. Then I'd hit the ground giggling and run back to the swings to do it all over again. One afternoon, while I was happily swinging through the air, a man sitting on a nearby bench called me out to me. You really like this park, don't you? Just about every time I'm here, I see you playing on the swing set. He was the park's groundkeeper. I knew because I'd often seen him near the playground raking leaves when I played by myself. It must be loads of fun. Why don't you come here and sit next to me for a while? Surprised that someone was actually talking to me, I left my squeaky swings and took a seat next to him. Right away, I noticed his scrawny, bony body, bony face, and worn out jeans. As he lit a cigarette between dirty tartane's fingers, I thought, his teeth are so yellow and crooked that he must hate going to the dentist as much as I do. Even so, I like the fact that someone was finally paying attention to me. So you like to swing, eh? I like games too, he said as he inched closer to me. I got a whiff of his foul smelling breath as he leaned over and whispered in a very coy voice, "Do you know what a pedophile is?" "No," I admitted. But his question felt off to me, like a mildewed piece of bread or funky cheese odor. I couldn't really hear what he said after that, but I did hear him say he wanted to show me a game in his office. However, when I got up to follow him, I felt sick to my stomach and my head started spinning. So I quickly turned around and ran past the swings all the way home as fast as I could. I was out of breath by the time I reached the front door, but to my surprise, I no longer felt dizzy or nauseous. However, I was ashamed of having felt sick, so I didn't tell anyone about it. The following morning, as I neared the park on my way to school, as soon as I heard the metallic creak, creak of the swings, my vision blurred. I felt a strange pressure on my eyes and a weight on my chest. I couldn't breathe. Panic! I ran to school and vowed never to set foot in the park again. Friendless, bullied, and deprived of my beloved sandbox and swings, I fell behind in school and needed a home tutor. As my world closed down, so did my eyesight, and I had to start wearing glasses. To ease my pain, I filled myself with candy bars and sweets, and as a result, became overweight. Four Eyes and Fatso became my new nicknames at school. But when the loneliness became unbearable, I adopted my dad's work ethic. I mowed neighbors' lawns, raked leaves, washed cars, and eventually took on a paper route. Most customers on my route had subscriptions, so I just needed to collect their payments door to door. After knocking politely, I took their money and punched a hole in their card with my puncher. It all went well until one morning, the following summer, when I walked up the wooden porch of a red brick house. I rang the doorbell, and a woman in a blue velvet bathrobe answered. "Well, hello, young man. What can I do for you?" She slurred as she held a glass with ice cubes that clinked together. Her breath reeked of alcohol as she moved closer to me, letting her bathrobe peek open to reveal her clingy, see-through pink negligee. I'm here to collect the money for your newspaper," I managed to blurt out as I avoid looking at her. "Oh, you must be thirsty, young man. It's so hot outside. Why don't you come in for a drink of water?" she purred. "Just money, please," I insisted, my whole body tensing up as I concentrated on the pompons on her fuzzy pink slippers. When she took a step closer, pulled lightly on my shoulder, and again asked me to come in. I felt as if an icicle had slid down my spine. If you just could, the money, I stammered as I took a step back, trembling in fear. She finally went inside, got her purse, and handed me the cash. I punched her card without ever looking up and finished my rounds while quivering from my cold sweat. Weeks later, as I walked up to the same house, my heart pounded and my breath quickened. Sweat was beading on my forehead, so I pulled my cap over my eyes and rang the doorbell. This time, the woman was fully clothed, cold and distant. And thankfully, she didn't invite me to come inside. I'm okay, I thought to myself, relieved. She'll pay me, and I'll be on my way. I was able to catch my breath until I saw a shadow behind her in the hallway. With his stocky body, shirtless, hairy chest, and goatee, he reminded me of a satyr minus the horns. My heart stopped. It was the teacher who'd call me Giardini. After that, I gave up my paper route just like I had gave up the swings. The teacher, the lady, the groundskeeper, I can't trust adults, I concluded. They're all bad people. In 1967, Canadians celebrated and Montreal opened its doors to the world. But in my own little universe, cold and heavy metal gates closed with a clang, trapping me further in the black void of loneliness. Chapter 2. Thank you for being there. Thank you for sharing my story. Anything you want, anything you can dream of. I never thought I would write this book. I never thought I would go through all the adventures that are in it. And still today, I'm surprised by everything that is possible. So I'll see you next week for the new reading with chapter 3. I love you all. You are amazing. I believe in you. Have an amazing week. This is Guy from Montreal. Bye bye.